Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Gareth Dyke, and this is a joint webinar presentation brought to you by Diffusion Editing alongside our partners, Diffusion Editing and Bentham Science. I would like to get started in just a few moments, so let's do a quick sound check. Let's make sure that you can hear me, clearly, and that the audio is working okay. So I would appreciate it very much if you could type into the chat box over there on the right hand side of the webinar panel to let me know that you can hear me. I certainly hope that you can. We will wait for just 1 or 2 moments before we get started with our presentation today, which is all about understanding research ethics, publication ethics. Thank you once again for joining us for this presentation. Let me repeat that my name is Gareth Dyke. This is a joint presentation that's going to be brought to you by Bentham Science, leading publishers of ebooks and online hybrid academic journals, and of course, Diffusion Editing. If you would like to get in touch with us, please do so. We welcome all contact from colleagues, and indeed, if you have questions over the course of this webinar presentation today, please also feel free to type them into the chat box down there on the right hand side of your panel. Hello, everybody. Hello, this is Gareth from Diffusion Editing. Understanding research and publication ethics is our topic for our webinar presentation today. I see that lots of colleagues are here with us from around the world, so it's time to get started with our content. Let's dive in and start talking about publication ethics. Gareth is my name. As I've already mentioned, I worked for many years as an academic, a researcher in Ireland, in the UK, now in Hungary. I'm also an editor working with publishing companies, working with author services companies. So I certainly hope that in this presentation today, I will be able to give you some insights into the common issues around ethics in publication, in research that authors tend to experience. Again, let me say, if you would like to ask a question, please do so in the chat box on the right hand side of the webinar screen. And indeed, if you would like to get in touch with us after this presentation, please feel free to do so. You are probably thinking, why sit here and listen to this guy for the next 45 minutes? Well, we are going to be talking about 3 issues in this presentation today. In the first place, plagiarism and falsification, the first of the ethical issues that authors, that researchers tend to face. Secondly, we're going to discuss some issues around authorship, around academic authorship on research papers. And then thirdly, one of the most common ethical issues that, of course, everybody encounters in their research and in their publishing life cycle, the issue of reputable publishers. How can you select a good publishing company, a good journal for your next article in terms of the ethics of that area? So, plagiarism, falsification, issues around authorship, and then publishers. How can you accurately and efficiently select and navigate that ethical minefield? What is a good journal publisher and what and who are not? And the goal, the aim of all of our training, all of these events that we put together at Bentham science, diffusion editing is to help you as researchers be the best that you can be as efficient as possible, and navigate that minefield, the difficult aspects of research and publishing, in particular ethics. So let's get started. Let's go in and start to talk about the first of our issues today, and that is, of course, academic plagiarism. Here is the way that research as a process should be working. We come up with research projects, we collaborate, we submit articles to journals, hopefully leading international journals such as those published by Bentham Science, and then our articles get published, and then the cycle starts all over again. But of course, there are issues that we encounter as authors along the way, issues around fraud and malpractice, and issues to do with our understanding of publishing and research ethics. And that's what we're going to touch on, we're going to discuss in this presentation today. If you are aware of the issues around ethics in these areas, you can avoid them in your own academic and publishing career. Very important, especially when we think of the kinds of things that publishing companies often encounter from authors in terms of ethical infringements in publishing. Common kinds of author misconduct include figure manipulation and falsification, data falsification, data fraud, plagiarism, which we're going to talk about in a minute, duplicate, redundant publications, we'll talk about that as well in a moment, conflicts of interest, authorship conflict, failure to provide published information on reagents, on chemicals, unethical issues, and reviewer misconduct. This is a list of the top kinds of ethical issues that international publishing companies tend to encounter. So we will touch on three of these: plagiarism, authorship, and journal selection in this presentation today, but there are others. I'm just going to focus on these three because that's what we have time for in our presentation today, but also because these three are the most common, the most frequently encountered kinds of issues that publishing companies get to experience. So let's get started by thinking about what is plagiarism, academic plagiarism as an issue in ethics. This is, of course, the appropriation, the use of another person's ideas, processes, results, or words without giving appropriate credit. So here we are appropriating things from other articles, data, text, most commonly even figures, without citing, stealing somebody else's work or ideas, in a nutshell, in essence. And this is the most commonly encountered issue in research ethics internationally. And I'm not saying that you're going to do this on purpose. Most international academic authors, in fact, are guilty sometimes of plagiarism by mistake. They just don't know that what they're doing with their articles, with the lack of citations, with the reuse of data, with the reuse of figures, is something that needs to be addressed, something that needs to be cited. When you put the work of other people into your academic articles, of course, you have to cite. So again, learning about these issues, knowing about these issues is key, because of course, if you know about them, if you are aware of them as ethical issues, then you can avoid them in your own research. So we'll come back and we'll talk about how you can check your work for plagiarism in a minute, but let me say that this is a huge issue in both the academic environment and beyond. The use of information without crediting its source can, of course, significantly affect your credibility as a researcher, as a writer, and as a publishing academic. So making use of the works of others to gather information, using the works of others and calling it, passing it off as your own. Often this is done by mistake, by academics, and examining the work of others to shape an argument you must cite. And we'll look at some examples in a minute of this kind of thing in academic publishing so that you can understand to avoid these issues in your own writing, of course, can be so important.